Ricky Gervais is back, and he's not holding anything back. With his razor-sharp wit and fearless attitude, the legendary comedian has taken aim at today's celebrities, tearing through their polished facades and calling out the hypocrisy hiding behind the glamour. His jokes hit hard, leaving no room for self-righteousness or pretension.
It's that, just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right, you know?
This is Gervais at his most ruthless. No subject too taboo, no ego too big. As Hollywood's elite squirm in their seats, Gervais does what he does best, saying what everyone's thinking but too afraid to say.
When I was in England trying to do stand-up there, you can't say anything about the Queen. They have a fit, and they won't laugh. Is that true when you do it?
No, not anymore. Not my
well, it was then.
No, I mean, I think that, I think that BBC are still a bit stuffy because they get complaints and, they're a sort of government body, so they fear.
Ricky Gervais is a well-known comedian, actor, and writer who recently released his first stand-up special in 7 years. He notes that in England, it's difficult to make jokes about certain topics, especially the Queen, without receiving a negative reaction from the audience. There's a cultural sensitivity toward the monarchy, and many people don't take kindly to jokes at the Queen's expense. Gervais points out that the BBC in particular is quite conservative when it comes to such topics because they fear complaints from viewers. However, Gervais prefers performing live shows because there's more freedom, and people are generally more open-minded about what they find funny. The conversation touches on Gervais's politically incorrect humor, which has become a hallmark of his style. He explains that comedy, in his view, often involves offending people, but being offended doesn't necessarily mean that the person is right. Offense is subjective, and everyone reacts differently to certain topics. For Gervais, comedy is about tackling taboo subjects and addressing difficult issues in a humorous way. Sometimes people misunderstand his jokes, particularly when he uses irony, but he believes that it's impossible to please everyone. He explains that if a comedian tries to avoid offending anyone, they will end up pleasing no one.
Well, when you go on the Golden Globes, a lot of time you are politically incorrect and hilarious, of course.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
So this is...
Well...
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about offence, isn't it? When people say they're offended, it's that, just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right, you know?
Gervais also discusses his performances at the Golden Globe Awards, where he became known for his controversial and politically incorrect jokes. He enjoyed the tension in the room when making such jokes, particularly when he knew there were elephants in the room. Topics everyone was thinking about but too afraid to address.
I do like that because I do like confronting that because I think it takes the audience to a place it hasn't been before, and it can be a mutual backslapping, fest, fine, but don't televise it, because I'm not doing it for the 200 egos in the room. I'm doing it for the 200 million people watching around who aren't winning awards, who aren't millionaires, who don't
care about it.
He liked confronting those uncomfortable subjects, as he felt it brought the audience to a new place they hadn't been before. Gervais stresses that he didn't make jokes for the celebrities in the room, but for the millions of viewers at home. He found it absurd that award shows were essentially mutual appreciation events for wealthy celebrities, and he wasn't interested in catering to their egos. Instead, he aimed to entertain the general public who were watching.
First comedy special in 7 years, and you say that it's the right time for it, the subject matter.
Wow. Yeah, well, I left it for 7 years, not on purpose. I was doing other things. I did a series, I did Derek, I did a couple of movies, and I pushed it back because I always thought that stand-up was like the second or third thing I did, whereas now I've changed my mind. Now it's my favourite thing. I could give everything else up because it's such a privilege.
The conversation then shifts to Gervais's latest comedy special, which marks his first stand-up performance in 7 years. Gervais explains that he didn't plan the long gap between specials, but he was busy with other projects such as writing, directing, and acting in television shows and films. However, he now considers stand-up comedy his most important work and would be willing to give up everything else to continue performing.
Privilege and freedom of speech is so important these days, and you've got to, I've reached the age now where I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? It's like,
Welcome aboard,
what's the worst that can happen?
Welcome aboard.
I'm going to die soon.
Yeah.
So I'm offended. I'm going to die. So what? You know, so...
You made enough money at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He expresses a sense of freedom in doing stand-up, as it allows him to exercise his right to free speech, which he believes is more important than ever in today's world. Gervais also mentions that as he gets older, he cares less about what others think and feels more comfortable saying whatever he wants. He finds it liberating, particularly since he has already made enough money and doesn't need to worry about offending people. He adds that whatever money he doesn't need, he plans to leave to charities, specifically to help animals.
I do. This is the most personal. Again, I think for the same reasons. You know, I think that it's nice to look back and it's a celebration. I talk about my mum and dad and who aren't with us anymore, and jokes about the mum and mum's funeral. You know, because that's what. I think that's what humor's for. It gets us over bad stuff.
One of the key themes in Gervais' latest special is family, and he discusses this in the interview. He describes it as his most personal work, with much of the material drawn from his own life. Gervais talks about his parents, who are no longer alive, and how his jokes often reflect on their personalities and the influence they had on him. He believes that humor is a way to cope with difficult situations, and for him, it's important to joke about sad or challenging events, including the loss of loved ones.
The truth, you know, it's not just this idealized view of your mum. You tell, you know, why. I remember when I was 12, I got older brothers and sisters, which is why I'm like I am, I suppose. I had to show off to be heard, right? And they're much older than me. They're like 11, 13, and 14 years older than me. And I remember when I was about 12, I said to my mum, "Why are my brothers and sisters so much older than me?" And she said, "You were a mistake."
He doesn't see any value in avoiding these topics in comedy, as it would be a missed opportunity to use humor to heal. Gervais feels that by joking about his deceased family members, he keeps their memory alive in a way. He recalls how his mother once told him that he was a mistake, having been born much later than his older siblings. He finds this honesty refreshing and uses it as part of his comedy.
We don't want our families to meet, and
But you've said that the key to a happy relationship is separate bathrooms, which I totally agree with.
that's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah.
And why is that?
One less argument, isn't it? So yeah, no, it's great. It's lovely to have your space and.
The interview also touches on Gervais's relationship with his longtime partner, Jane, whom he has been with for 35 years. Gervais mentions that they have a happy relationship, and part of the reason for that is maintaining some independence, such as having separate bathrooms. This, he jokes, helps to avoid arguments. However, he clarifies that they do not have separate bedrooms, as that would be going too far. Humor is an essential part of their relationship, and Gervais believes that levity can help keep things light in any situation.
I think it's because when I was little, a bath was like a luxury. You know, we could afford like, you know, 2 a week each in the family. So now I think that's my luxury.
Now you're gluttonous, laying in the bath.
Honestly, my baths have got bigger and more luxurious. Yeah, I have 1 or 2 a day, and so I've got the iPhone. So I think, and it's great to look, you're in that position.
The conversation then turns to Gervais's presence on social media, particularly Twitter, where he has over 13 million followers. Gervais enjoys engaging with trolls and often posts unflattering photos of himself in the bath, which has become something of a trademark for him. He explains that growing up poor, a bath was considered a luxury in his household, and they could only afford 2 baths per week for each family member. Now, having achieved success, Gervais indulges in multiple baths a day, seeing it as one of life's simple pleasures. He often takes photos in bathtubs around the world, adding a humorous twist to the otherwise mundane activity.
I think so, because that was the thing about growing up. I was born into poverty and like welfare housing, and my dad was a labourer, mum was a housewife, and I was the youngest of 4. But the point was to, you know, pay your way, then have a laugh. Yeah. And you know, that was the men. The women carried on working, obviously.
Gervais reflects on his upbringing, growing up in poverty in a working-class family. His father was a laborer, and his mother was a housewife, raising 4 children in a welfare housing project. Despite their financial struggles, Gervais remembers that humor was an important part of family life.
Obviously. Yeah, it was everything.
Survival.
It was survival. You laugh at everything. It gets you over it, you know. And if you can laugh in the face of adversity, you're bulletproof.
And also, if you can make your parents laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can make their day better.
Absolutely.
You know.
We would tease them and everything, and they loved it. Yeah.
Come back. Sooner than 7 years, please.
Yeah, really.
Who knows if
Yeah.
any of us will be here? I'm back soon.
His parents encouraged laughter, and it became a way to get through difficult times. Gervais believes that growing up in this environment helped shape his sense of humor and his ability to laugh in the face of adversity. He learned that if you can make your parents laugh, it brightens their day, and humor became a tool for survival. Ricky Gervais has once again proven that no one is untouchable when it comes to his brand of unapologetic comedy. Whether you agree with him or not, his ability to spark conversation and challenge the status quo is undeniable. As the spotlight fades, one thing remains clear: Gervais isn't here to play nice, and that's exactly why people can't stop watching. If you're ready for more fearless comedy that doesn't pull any punches, be sure to check out his full stand-up specials and stay tuned for what he does next.